Now, I always say with this as well, too, with realtors, is that we oftentimes are on the front lines of introducing people to a community. And so a realtor holds a lot of sway and influence in how people feel about certain areas and certain markets, right? I get calls and conversations all the time from clients where they'll be coming in from a different market or a different area, and they'll ask us point blank, like, hey, what do you think of this area? Where are the best schools? Where's the best parks? Where's the best places to eat, right? All of those things. Before you have an opportunity to kind of build the friend groups and people that you will often go to for that advice, in many cases, the realtor is the first person you talk to when you're going through that as well. And for realtors, even if you have no ill will or not trying to intentionally do anything, more times than not, if somebody asks you, welcome to the Home Goals Podcast, the ultimate guide for turning your home goals into a reality. I'm your host, Derek Thornton. Join us as we navigate the twists and turns of obtaining a home. We'll be offering expert tips, helping you avoid pitfalls, and championing your journey towards that cherished place to call home. This week's episode, I want to take some time to discuss fair housing in what it means, how it all dictates everything, and one of the reasons why these particular set of laws, I have to say, is very instrumental in the way that real estate agents work with our clients, the way that we advise them. Sometimes it can be a little frustrating, because they may ask us questions that we aren't really at liberty to answer. And so I'm going to discuss kind of how all of that comes into play, how you can make sure that you are making the decision that's best for you, but understanding too why a lot of these practices and things that are in place are there to really protect and make sure that everyone has a fair and an equal shot at the home dream of ownership as well. And so I want to take a little time to break through that. The month of April is my birthday month, and I don't take it lightly, and I'm really excited that I was actually born during Fair Housing Month. This is what we recognize in the realtor community as Fair Housing Month every year. We do a lot of different events revolving around fair housing. This is usually when we kind of talk about like what we can do as agents and as realtors to be able to help kind of right a lot of the wrongs and the injustices that have been done in the community, especially within the realtor community itself. If you look back in the long history of the realtor in this country, it goes back well over 100 years, this profession. And for many of those years, we did a lot of harm and damage to just the general communities in the practices and the rules and the laws that we had into effect. And so this is one time of year, especially, we usually talk about it all throughout the year because it comes up all the time, but especially this month in particular as one time it's really present on a lot of people's minds as well. And so really fair housing, before I go into detail about like how it impacts you and what you may be looking to do in the home purchase process and working with an agent as well, I'm going to first kind of briefly touch on what brought about these laws and how this all started in the first place, right? And so obviously, as you know, like this country has a long storied past of segregation and slavery and a lot of things that really did not give equal chances and opportunities to minority individuals, black homeowners, like all these different people who were really kept from being able to take advantage of the American dream. And when you look around maybe the 1960s or so, during that time, people like Martin Luther King, a lot of different civil rights activists out there were really working hard to make sure that we had the same equal rights as everyone else, especially in the African American and black population. And they had been met with a ton of resistance at every turn and every corner. It was always something that was happening that would change that. But through that work, whatever, they continued to make small, continual strides that helped as well, right? So they had the Civil Rights Act that was started, and, had like all these different small wins that had come along. And particular when it came to fair housing, we had reached a point where housing was an opportunity, but there were still a ton of laws and issues and things there was segregation, there were Jim Crow laws keeping people separate from being able to purchase homes in certain areas. Even in the realtor code of ethics, we used to have in our written code, like that you were not allowed to help people purchase homes in neighborhoods where it could have a detrimental value to that particular neighborhood or subdivision. And so there were a lot of things that were written, made in law, and we've talked about this in past podcast episodes as well, but there were a lot of things out there that were really pushing against Black home ownership. And in 1968, that was the year, unfortunately, when Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. And his assassination, it sent ripple effects throughout the entire country, throughout the entire world. But another side effect of that tragedy is that as a result, the fair housing laws that he had been working to get passed through Congress, which had really kind of reached a standstill at that point, President Lyndon Johnson signed those laws into effect within a couple of weeks, right? Like it had just reached a standstill. Neither side could agree on where things were. But after that tragedy happened, they quickly passed those laws to come through. And that's how we got the Fair Housing Act of 1968. And one of the key factors of that piece of legislation is that it made it illegal to discriminate based on what they call the protected classes, right? The protected classes are basically just they got race, creed, color, religion, sex, handicap status, familial status, like any of those categories of individuals. It's saying that you're not allowed to discriminate on them for housing, right? And so for loans, if you're trying to sell your home to someone, if you're trying to rent a property, and they have those other things in place. And so it was a groundbreaking piece of legislation that got passed. It was, and I've set it up many times before, it was one of the things that allowed me and people who look like me to become homeowners even to this day, and have opportunities to live wherever we want to live, and whatever we can afford to, whatever works best for our class, for our family as well. And so those are things that like really kind of shaped the way that housing would look in the years to come. Now, did that happen overnight? Obviously, no. We still have all kinds of blatant violations, even to this day, when it comes to fair housing. Just all the time, there's just all kinds of things happening in day-to-day life, and these are laws that continue to be broken on a regular basis. I would say fair housing laws get broken about as often as speeding laws, which is to say a ton, right? It's just there's constant violations by realtors and by professionals who are in the industry. Sometimes it's ignorance, and sometimes it's just a willful, blatant, rebelliousness against wanting to follow those rules. And that has been to the detriment of some classes of people, and it's important for us to not just continue to let it fall by the wayside, but to do what we can to make sure that this doesn't continue on in those areas, right? And so there's all different types of ways. And again, it doesn't always mean that you're blatantly trying to break the rules or anything like that, but like even inadvertently, you can mistakenly kind of go through that process of thinking that you're just trying to find out more about a house and kind of veering into breaking fair housing laws or asking your realtor or your agent to break those laws for you, right? And so when it comes to discrimination in those categories, that's very, very easy to do, especially when you start talking about familial status in those areas, right? You know, is it a family? Is it a single person? Or you're talking about religion, right? Is this a Christian family? Is this a Hindu family? When you're talking about like the sex and stuff too, where the gender is of the person, and like what that makes it, and like where all these things come into play. A lot of stuff that really has nothing to do with the house itself, right? Like you can, at the end of the day, you can determine like, hey, I may or may not have gotten along with this person who's about to purchase this home or who's selling this house. But at the end of the day, all I care about is the home itself more than the people who are living there or the people who are selling that property. I want to see how that all works out, right? And so it's indicative on us to make sure that that doesn't come into play. Now, I always say with this as well, too, with realtors, is that we oftentimes are on the front lines of introducing people to a community. And so a realtor holds a lot of sway and influence in how people feel about certain areas and certain markets, right? I get calls and conversations all the time from clients where they'll be coming in from a different market or a different area, and they'll ask us point blank, like, hey, what do you think of this area? Where are the best schools? Where's the best parks? Where's the best places to eat, right? All of those things before you have an opportunity to kind of build the friend groups and people that you will often go to for that advice. In many cases, the realtor is the first person you talk to when you're going through that as well. And for realtors, even if you have no ill will or not trying to intentionally do anything, more times than not, if somebody asks you, hey, what's your favorite restaurant? What's your favorite school? What's your favorite? Like when they're asking you these questions, you're thinking of things that you obviously spend a lot of time around. Right. So if I tend to spend time with people who look like myself, who think like me, who have the same faith as me, who eat the same food as me, that's just naturally what I'm going to recommend if someone asks me about a certain area. Right. And it's no different with anybody else. We all have our own preferences, biases. We have all these different things that are swirling around in our minds. And if people are asking us questions around that, it's very easy for us as realtors to just kind of go back to what we like. Hey, here's the best schools because this is where my kids went to school, or this is where my friends go to school, or this is what I've heard about in all this area, right? You're very easy to say all of that, but not always keeping in mind that what may have worked for you or may be beneficial or preferential to you may not be the same for the person that you're working with, right? So like even when it comes to the house itself, right, there's a lot of people who have purchased houses that I would never buy because it's just not my style. It's not what I would like, but it's perfect for them. And it's no different with any other area, right? Like the best school is subjective, right? It's different depending on who you're talking to, right? Whatever needs your child may have, whatever environment they may thrive in, is different for everybody. Where's the best restaurants? What's a quote unquote safe neighborhood, right? Like all of these things kind of like veer into those fair housing conversations. And as realtors, we have to be very careful in the way that we respond to those questions, because again, it can start to lead down giving our own biases, our own preferences, and inadvertently harming a certain community, a certain neighborhood, a certain area, because we're trying to give our personal take on what may or may not work best for our particular client. And so there's a lot of things that you have to be very careful with as a realtor when you're having these conversations with your clients and letting them know, like, hey, I need you to do your own research as well, too. It can't just be whatever my realtor says, that's what I'll agree with. My realtor says this is the best one. That's not. Our job is to help you find the best home that works for you, the best home that's going to provide you the best mix of what you're looking for, whether it's near your hobbies, if it's going to have a high rate of return on the investment that you made. That's one of our primary concerns as an agent. But then also, does it meet up with all of the other standards and things that you're looking for as well, too? And so we want to do that in a way that doesn't also push them away from a place that may be best for them. And like I said, and let's be frank, right? If you are a person, like if I'm a person who only hangs out with other Black people, if I only hang out with other Christians, if I only hang out with other realtors and stuff, that's going to be kind of my worldview. That's going to be kind of the bubble that I see the world from. That's my viewpoint. That's my perspective. And that's going to shape the way that I respond to certain questions. And so I need to understand, and I'm constantly having to remind myself of the fact that although that may be my story, that I can't then put that same lens on my clients and say, hey, this is the way that you should see the world or view this home or view this area. And so you have to be very careful in the way that you do that. because again, we are the first line of defense. We're the first person. We're the first impression for a particular area for many people who are moving in this spot, right? There's three kind of big violations that were often the case of fair housing violations done directly by realtors or people who are in this industry. One of which is steering. That's where you're directing a buyer toward or away from a particular neighborhood based on the demographics, right? Demographics that match with what your bias or your opinion may be for that particular area. Another one that was popular back in the day, and still is popular, it still rears its ugly head every now and then too, but blockbusting. This used to be when a family of color would move onto a predominantly white neighborhood or something like that. The realtors would then come in and try to play on the fears of other homeowners in the area and say, hey, this family just moved in. Your house values are about to go down pretty soon. You better just go ahead and sell your house with me. And let's figure out how to get this done so that you're cutting your losses now, right? And that's kind of like saying where you have, in many cases, examples of what we called white flight in many neighborhoods, right? Where certain people of color would move into a neighborhood, and then that would cause like just an eventual spreading out of all the other races as well. For those particular ones, right? So you got the steering, blockbusting. You also had redlining as well, too. That was more so on the lending side of things, but there were a lot of lenders who would not insure mortgages in certain neighborhoods or in certain areas, right? And so when you had all of these veterans coming back from war and being able to take advantage of the GI Bill and the housing advantages and the tax credits and all that stuff like that, all of these incentives that were put in place by the government, a lot of times black homeowners and black individuals were not able to take advantage of those same benefits because of redlining and all of those things that were in place today, right? You have some neighborhoods that blatantly said outright in their restrictive covenants, we do not allow families of color. And so now you're restricted into where you can even buy a house. And then when you find a house that you are able to buy, then you got to worry about, well, am I going to be able to get a loan for this house? Or are they going to deny or reject that loan based on the area that this house is in? And so it's just a lot of things that, again, have shaped the way the world looks today. We still have examples of fair housing violations rearing their ugly head on a regular basis. Bank of America had to pay a settlement of several years ago where they were blatantly caught violating different fair housing laws and discriminating on people of color based on the loan types they gave to borrowers who had very similar criteria, very similar matchups and income and everything else. But because of their color, they weren't given the opportunities that everyone else was given as well. We had a undercover case. If you ever get a chance, I will go online and look up the case of Long Island, where they had a big undercover investigation where they found that there were all these realtors who were basically violating fair housing by doing all those things that I just talked about, blockbusting, steering, basically telling people you don't want to live in this particular area because you don't like that area. But then if a person of a different race comes in, they would tell them something completely different. If one person came in and they quote unquote liked the way that person looked, they might say, oh, you don't need a pre-approval letter to go look at homes. But if another person came in, they would tell that exact same person, oh, you do need pre-approval letters to go look at houses, right? Just all of these just blatant violations and things that you would have hoped would have ceased by now. But even 40 and now 50 years past the passing of the Civil Rights or the Fair Housing Act of 1968, we are still dealing with these issues, right? We're still dealing with segregation that may not be as blatant as it once was, but it's still very kind of concentrated in certain areas. You can see it starting to show up, and that in whether we want to admit it or not, realtors play a huge role in that, right? So again, it's up to us to make sure that we're doing what's best for our clients and for our communities, and making sure that we have diverse communities in every single way. Like, we usually talk about race a lot of times, but again, this is not just race. There's all kinds of other protected classes, right? There's religion, you got the handicap status as well too, right? Are you doing all you can to make sure that the properties, the houses that you have, that they present opportunities for people who have handicap status as well? So all of these things are things that need to be taken into consideration, and they're important for us to look to, not just during the month of April, but during all times, right? And so when you're looking at houses and trying to get that as well, try to do your part in making sure that you are doing it. So, like, don't chastise your agent because they maybe didn't answer the question the way that you wanted to, because you understand it's for the greater good, and understanding that we don't want to even mistakenly steer someone in a certain direction, wherever. We want to make sure that we help you find the place that is best for you, and do so without discrimination. When I'm working with a seller and they're looking at different offers, when I first present that offer to them, I'll redact the name of the buyer initially, because I want them to be able to just focus on the terms of that offer. I don't even want them to have the ability to be accused of discriminating against someone, right? I don't want you looking them up on Facebook and trying to stalk them and figure out everything about them. No, I just want you to look at that offer, say, hey, is this an offer that works for me? And then leave it at that, right? Just little practices and little changes like that can make all the difference in the world, to make sure that everyone has a fair shot and a fair opportunity to be able to achieve their goal of home ownership as well. And so keep that in mind, take that in look. We're always looking for new, innovative ways to make sure that we are truly giving opportunities to everyone to have that dream of home ownership, right, as well. I mean, I even think about my daughter. You look back at the years prior as well, there were times where, in the not too distant past, for many of our grandparents and stuff, where women weren't even allowed to have their own credit card or get a loan in their own name, right? And so now look how far we've come in that ability, right? I love the fact that they now have that, and that single women are really leading the charge in many cases for home ownership nowadays, right? That wouldn't have even been possible when you talk about 50, 60 years ago, right? And so things like that are what truly help this country move forward and progress. It may seem small, it may seem minimal in many cases, but it is a huge difference for a lot of the people out there. And so I hope that you'll take all that into consideration. I think about this stuff a lot more. I love reading about this stuff and just figuring out ways that it works. If you ever looking for a book recommendation, The Color of Law by Richard Rothstein, I would definitely recommend checking that out. Does a wonderful job detailing how all of these things came into play. And I may even read it myself again, right? It's something that I thoroughly enjoyed going through. So I would definitely recommend that as well. But I hope that you all have a wonderful week. Enjoy this time, and I'll talk to you next week. Have a good one.